Hi everyone, here's the book I'm once again. It's time for my top 20 best books I have read in 2016. Back there on my bed you should see most of the books I'm going to talk about in this video, but first a few notes, it won't take a minute. This year I'm publishing my chart together with my colleague and good friend Keith Whitty, who is pretty much my favorite book reviewer on the whole of the internet. If you like my video, my reviews, I'm sure you would love Keith's blog. We review pretty much the same kind of stuff, mostly contemporary American fiction and world literature in general. In the past we have agreed on most books, but this year he and I disagreed on a couple of titles and I'm very curious about top 10. I can't wait to check it out. Do check out Keith's top 10 too. There's a link to his blog in the description box below. Also, I'm publishing this video on Maven too, which is a new platform for creators and also for me to share videos and turn them into interactive projects. If you check out this video on Maven, again, there's a link in the description box, you'll be able to tell me about your favorite books of 2016, which of the books I'm going to talk about you liked a lot. Do let me know and do check out Maven, it's great. In this video I'm just going to tell you about the 20 books I liked the most from this year, but at the end of this video, and again in the fucking description box, you'll find a video to the Book Chemist Book Awards of 2016, in which I'm going to tell you more about my year as a reader, in which I'm going to give you also the books I didn't like, the book I liked the least from 2016. It's going to be a big bookish extravaganza. Check out that link. About the chart, I'm only considering books I've read for the first time in 2016, no rereadings, otherwise the whole of the chart would have just been Chabon, Pynchon. But keep in mind that The Fortress of Solitude, which I reread this year, is a book I loved a lot. I'm talking about it because I never mentioned it much on my channel, but dense as it is, I do believe that it is one of the masterpieces of the 21st century. Jonathan Lethem's Fortress of Solitude, do check it out. Finally, I'm not going to include in this video Thomas Pynchon's V, because I can't make up my mind about it. I tried to put it in the chart, but it would have been either at the very bottom or at the very top. I'm still not sure about this book. Expect a review before the end of the year, but I need to think about it and I'll consider it for my chart in 2017. Let's go. On number 20 is Don DeLillo's latest novel 0K, which is in the same vein as DeLillo's latest novels. It's very slow and zen-like and poetic, but it's more thrilling both plot-wise and character-wise than most of those novels. It's by far my favorite post-underworld DeLillo novel, and I would suggest it to anyone who's looking for a slow read and for good food for thought. Number 19 is a postmodern classic, John Barth's Lost in the Funhouse, which is one of those books that if you are a dedicated reader and a lover of books, sooner or later you have to check it out, because it talks in very original and gimmicky ways about the experience of being a reader, the meaning of literature and its function, the experience of writing also. And although in the second half of this collection you kinda need a classics degree to understand what's going on, and probably you also have to be quite crazy, it's completely fine in my opinion to just read this book up to the story title, Lost in the Funhouse, and to try to navigate what comes after in whatever way you can. Number 19 is Jonathan Lethem's You Don't Love Me Yet, which is one of the cutest reads and one of the most hilarious books I've read this year. It is a book the internet kinda hates, but I liked it quite a lot. It talks a lot about what it is to be in an indie rock and roll band these days. It talks a lot about hipster culture and whether it's more about the music or about other stuff. And I believe lots of people hate it because they believe it is kind of a praise of hipster culture, but I'm quite convinced that it makes fun of hipsters and those kinds of people. It's not like it's a, oh look how cool we all are. I don't think so. Also, it's very difficult to talk about music in literature to convey what a fictional song feels like, but Lethem does that beautifully in that book. Number 17 and 16 are two haunted house novels. Number 17 is Slade House by David Mitchell, an amazing read that felt a lot like reading a choose-your-own-adventure kind of book in which you kept dying and dying time and again. The most beautiful thing about this book is the way each of its parts is narrated through a different perspective, and all of these perspectives are different and all of them are awesome. It's an amazing horror story and also a great writing experiment. highly enjoyable but extremely rewarding. Number 16 is The Blood-Chilling House on the Borderland by William Hope Hodgson, one of the scariest books I've read in recent years, which is all the more strange considering it's from the 19th century basically, and it's an amazing book about cosmic horror in the Lovecraftian vein. You can see the seeds of what will become Lovecraftian horror in the past, but the best chapters in this book are those about being alone in a house in the fucking Borderland while monstrous things besiege your home. Terrifying and amazing and an addictive read. It's one of those books that make you rediscover the pleasure of reading. Which kinda means shit. All books make you rediscover the pleasure of reading. Sorry for saying that. It's the kind of things reviewers say when they have nothing to say. Number 15 is Lovecraft Country by Matt Ruff, which is a heartbreaking book about Lovecraftian horror set in the America of the 1950s of the Jim Crow laws, and it plays beautifully between with the parallels between being African American in America, in a society that looks at you as if you are cursed, as if you are a monster, and actual Lovecraftian horror as a place where monsters and curses are an everyday reality. It also plays beautifully with the fact that it is kinda halfway between a short story collection and a novel. In general, especially its ending is one of its greatest strengths, but it's an amazing read for anyone who's interested in horror, and it shows the potential for horror as a genre beyond like scaring you or making you feel creeped out. Number 14 is for Ascension by Gregory Dowling, one of the most enjoyable reading experiences I've had in recent years. A beautiful historical thriller that is extremely accurate but never pedantic. It depicts the city of Venice like few other books I've read are able to do. And the thing I love the most about this book is that it combines element of mystery and of occult and of the political thriller, and you never know what to expect from the next page. It's an amazing read. If you're looking for a Venice book, a book set in Venice, look no further. Number 13 goes to Summerland by Michael Chabon. If you love fantasy books about crossing into other worlds, kind of Chronicles of Narnia but better, this is an awesome book. If you love baseball, because this is a book about baseball, about a universe where baseball is the basic law of physics and of reality, and it's an amazing reflection on the nature of this sport, on the nature of sports in general, of life, of winning, of losing, of making mistakes. Amazing book. Had I discovered it at the age of 12, it probably would have ignited my passion for Michael Chabon 10 years in advance. Number 12 goes to Slow Learner by Thomas Pynchon, which is a weird book to judge because it's a collection of Thomas Pynchon's juvenilia, the short stories he published as a young man. But of those 5 stories, at least a good 3 are amazing, and at least one, which is The Secret Integration, is an impossible masterpiece. It's one of the best stories I've ever read. I love it so much. Check out my review if you're interested in learning more about the other stories, and of course check out my review for any of these books. There are links in the sempiternal description box. We're almost into the top 10, but number 11 goes to The Underground Railroad, winner of this year's National Book Award. Amazing book about slavery, about the true horrors of what slavery was. A great book that mixes element of fantasy and the fantastical with historical reality. A grim book, and a book that makes you feel, in the worst and the best of ways, the actual horror of the lives of its characters. Also amazingly narrated. The way it shifts between different periods of time, between different characters, is again amazing. A tough read, but a must read this year. And we have reached the top 10. Number 10 goes to Psyllium Fire by Garth Hallberg, which is a book that really grew on me. When I read it, I liked it, I gave it an enthusiastic review, but I had some doubts about it, and I still do. But at the same time, it's one of those books I've kept thinking about the most during this year, and I do think it is actually a great deserving novel. It's colossal, but it flows very well. Its depiction of 1970s New York City is spot on. You'll feel like you're living in the city for the duration of your reading experience. It's a great thriller. Maybe it's not the most rewarding of books, but that is completely compensated by the fact that the last 200 pages of this book are by far the best in the whole book. So it's a great experience through and through. Number 9 goes to another thriller, but a completely different thriller. Psyllium Fire is a very choral novel. You constantly feel like you are in the middle of a busy city surrounded by thousands of people, also because it's people with lots and lots of great characters. I Am No One makes you feel progressively as if you are getting more and more entrenched into the mind of the main character. Patrick Flanery's novel is about privacy in today's world, in the internet age, whether that's possible, and to me it's an amazing example of horror, actually, of Lovecraftian horror even. The way the main character descends deeper and deeper into the pit of his own paranoia is portrayed beautifully. Follow the way the first-person narration evolves in this novel, and overall it's a great experience. It's also a great book if you are curious about differences between British and American culture and about the world of the academia from a professor's perspective, because all of those things are in here. Extremely rewarding experience. Number 8 and number 7 go to two short story collections. Number 8 goes to Invaders, 22 Tales from the Outer Limits of Literature, yes, which is a collection of science fiction stories by some of today's most talented writers. Some of these mainly write genre science fiction, some of these don't, but have meddled with the genre, and all of these stories are amazing. Really, it's impossible how good these stories are. Each of them is, it's great, it's amazing. Jonathan Lethem's is the only one I didn't love at all. There's also Monstro by Junot Diaz in this collection, which is one of the best stories of all times. In general, it showcases the potential for science fiction as a short genre. Not that we had a need for that, but it's always great to read amazing short stories like these. Why don't we need, strictly speaking, brilliant short science fiction? Because the Golden Ages already gave us plenty of that. And number 7 goes to Store of the Worlds by Robert Sheckley, which is a collection of Sheckley's best short stories. And Sheckley is one of the great masters of science fiction. He's amazingly influential on people such as Douglas Adams and Terry Pratchett. He mixes humor with bitterness and action with reflection amazingly, and several of these stories are among the best science fiction stories I've ever read. These are the kind of this is the kind of stuff that makes you think that science fiction is unbeatable as a genre, that it showcases the best literature can achieve. They are uplifting and depressing, and they are beautiful examples of storytelling and inventiveness, narrative inventiveness. I can't overpraise this book. Do check it out. Also, if you've never read science fiction, or if you've never read Golden Age science fiction, excellent introduction. Number 6 is possibly the hardest book I've read this year and possibly the most rewarding book I've read this year, Mason and Dixon by Thomas Pynchon. Pynchon's crazy pastiche and imitation of 18th century writing about these two American legends and their lives and the forces that influence their lives and the nature of exploration and the potential for good in America and the way the country was fucked from the beginning, but also how hopefully utopian that country is, but also how terribly exploited it is, and really it's one hell of a roller coaster and one hell of a ride. There's lots to praise about this book, but the jewel that shines brighter than all the others is the characterization of its main characters. Mason and Dixon probably are Pynchon's best characters in his whole production, and their friendship, the way their friendship is depicted and discussed, is amazing. I believe that the first half of the book, the one that's set in South Africa, is not nearly as great as the part set in America, but that part is already amazing, and of course this book deals with mixes so many different genres and so many different reflections. It's cryptic and it's difficult, but again, even just for the beauty of all of its side quests and secondary storylines and all of its characters, it deserves to be read and loved. Number 5 goes to Umberto Eco's The Name of the Rose. Among the many, many amazing human beings who left us in 2016, Umberto Eco's loss was one of those that struck me the most. I'm sorry I wasn't able to attend his funerals in Milan because I was elsewhere, but also fuck that shit, because one, he lived an amazing life and he left us a shitload of amazing literature, both as far as his scholarly works is concerned and as far as his novels are concerned. Last year I loved his last novel, Numero Zero. This year I was able to love The Name of the Rose, which is, again, like Lost in the Funhouse, is one of those books that if you love books, you should definitely check out. It tells you something basic about the nature of books and why we read them, why they are written, why literature exists in the world, what's its purpose, and it's also an amazing mystery novel. And it's also an amazing historical novel set in the Middle Ages. As an historical novel, it kinda is a bit pedantic, and at times it takes too much time talking about its setting and about the time it was set, historical details, those kinds of things. It's a heavy novel, but it's so beautiful that I would still suggest it to anyone. It's not the easiest of novels, but it's among the best I've ever read. Number 4 goes to The Keep by Jennifer Egan. Possibly the book I enjoyed the most among those I've read this year. An amazing gothic novel, horror novel set in an isolated, eerie European castle, but also a book that is beautifully narrated and a great reflection on the need, the human need for storytelling. It reminded me a lot of The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde, which is more or less my favorite book of all times. And because of its quirky but amazing kind of narrator, and also because of its reflection on the need for storytelling, and because of the way all of this is wrapped in an impossibly great and addictive story. The Keep is one of those books. The others would be Slaughterous 5 by Kurt Vonnegut and John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men, that I would pretty much suggest to anybody. Like, I think these books have a 99% chance of being liked by readers. Number 3, I really didn't think I would say this, but number 3 goes to J.J. Abrams and Doug Dorst's S, which I can't show you because it's in another country, but that's better, because S is not as much a book, even though it is a book, as it is an experience. It borders on being some kind of game, even maybe a board game, because it's a book that is filled with so much stuff and that challenges your conception of what reading is, on why we read, on what is a good reading experience and what isn't. And in general, it's an adventure that you live both in the story within the book, in the story in the margins, in the story that is told through all the stuff that comes with the book, and in your own decoding of all this shit. And if what I'm telling you doesn't make sense because you don't know what S is, that's great, because one of the best things about the book is finding out about it by yourself. If you trust my opinion, go on Amazon, buy S by Dorst and Abrams. It costs a lot, but it's worth the money you're going to invest in it. Amazing book. Number 2 goes to who else but my main man, Michael Chabon, with his latest novel, Moonglow. The more I think about it, the more I believe it's a masterpiece. It's truly among Chabon's best works. It's definitely in the top 3, it might be in the top 2. This is a book, once more, about the need and the power of storytelling, about how we construct our world and our universe through stories. It's a book that has vibes of science fiction and of horror, strong horror vibes in here, but it's mostly an historical novel, but even more than that, it's a memoir about the main character's grandfather and his grandmother, their problematic and difficult and tragic life that was still filled with so much beauty and so much happiness. The last few pages, I keep rereading the last few pages of this book because they are so good. It's an heartbreaking book, it's a rewarding experience. It's kind of all over the place, and in the first half of the book you might not be sure what the book is about, but if you carry on, you're going to find some of the best plot twists I've ever met in literature in here, and pretty much the best writing as far as style, as far as whatever the fuck is concerned, the best writing you can find out there today. Check out Moonglow, I can't oversell this book. Number 1 this year goes to something that is not quite a book as much as it is a miracle, because it's pretty much what I've always wanted from literature, materialized in the form of a 1200-page novel, Against the Day by Thomas Pynchon. This is an epic story sprawling over several decades with an amazing cast of so many different characters, a story that taps into several different genres, and at times it is a western, at times it is an espionage novel, there's lots of horror in here, and it asks, all of these different genres are wrapped around beautiful reflections about how the world crushes the weak and kills the poor, and about how common, normal people can react to all that and can behave in a world such as this. It is a book that asks terrible, terrible questions about guilt and about how we are responsible for the horrors of the world. But at the same time, it's an amazing, uplifting adventure of people fighting against the day, against the tide of history and of slaughter. It's an amazing book about a bunch of boys on a flying ship trying to be good in a world that isn't. It simply is one adventure after the other. All of the adventures in this book, all of the storylines are impossibly beautiful and thrilling and rewarding. It's all I've ever dreamed from literature. It is the best kind, the best example of Lovecraftian horror I have ever read. Lovecraftian horror is king in this book, and I'm including Lovecraft's production too in this consideration. It's in a perfect world, this is the kind of book that would have generated a TV series and a movie and a board game and a video game series, and all of these things would be awesome and everybody would love them. As it is, you at least should love this book. It's impossibly long and very, very dense, but that said, I do not believe it is difficult at all. Maybe check out another Pynchon novel first to get an idea of how he writes. That said, miracle. Perfect. That's it. That's my top 20 books I read in 2016. Let me know which of these books you liked this year or in the past, and about the best books you read in 2016, whether they came out this year or recently, whether they are from the 11th century. Let me know about your favorite books and greatest reading experiences from this year. Check out Kate Whitfift's top 10 too, I'm very curious about it. Check out this book on Maven so you can tell me there which books you liked among the ones I've talked about. Thank you so much for watching once again, guys. Thank you for all your support in 2016, it was great. I will see you next year. Have a great New Year's Eve. Happy 2017. Bye, guys.